Yeah, we can begin now, I think. If you move on to the next slide. All right, awesome. Hey guys, I'm Sharik. I'm the president and founder of Columbia Synapse. So started in early 2019. And a bit about what Columbia Synapse is. You probably read this already wherever you learned about the event. But we're like a New York City-based group, like governed by like three principles, which have like kind of defined our operations and programming over the past 2 years. So it's been community building, neuroscience, and advocacy for the community of individuals with brain injury. And recently we've kind of expanded our bandwidth and like kind of raised it to advocacy for people with invisible disabilities and particularly like neurological disabilities. So the group draws from like a wide network of resources from like the hospital systems across the city. So we're very fortunate to have Weill Cornell, Mount Sinai, NYU Langone, all very cutting edge hospitals who have like cutting edge research and like really good treatment programs. And of course, like New York Presbyterian, my bad, that's the Columbia Medical Center. So like we have quite a bit of access to like wonderful healthcare professionals across the city, and Synapse just gives like a really good platform to be able to talk to these stakeholders and like interact with them in a professional capacity, but also like build our own personal network in that procedure process. Great. Next slide. Awesome. So these are the wonderful people at who are in an advising capacity for us. Some of you are going to probably meet these people, and I would recommend that you do, of course. Like I imagine many of you are neuroscience and behavior majors or like anticipating to major in that. So there's Dr. Caroline Marvin. She's our faculty advisor, and she's the director of academic affairs and director of undergraduate studies in neuroscience and behavior. So she's like very closely involved with us, and just is a wonderful person to get to know in general. And we have Dr. Ali, who's also a researcher at Columbia in the psychology department. And she's a professor and like a principal investigator, which I mentioned. And in the middle is Dr. Kirk Lurcher, who is the medical director of the brain injury rehab program, with the caveat that we don't dispense medical advice because at the end of the day, we are undergrad students and we're not trained physicians. So we don't promise that to any of the attendees of like our various community programs, like the peer support group that we host that Iman will speak about a bit later, and the peer buddy program. But we do have some advice from Dr. Lurcher on like strategic issues on like how we can like really engage with the community in a better, more professional way. Next slide. Awesome. So community needs assessment. So how do we begin? A bit about the history of the club to set things in context. Awesome. So the process. So it was starting a club like this. It's not an easy effort because, like, as you guys, as many of you probably know who have worked with vulnerable communities, you have to be very sensitive and very thorough in the way you interact with these communities. So we try to be as rigorous as possible. Initially, it was a one-man team. I started off, and now have like a wonderful, wonderful team, which makes Synapse the club that it is, and I owe everything to them. But like initially it was basically just like going through internet searches, finding out like all these different healthcare professionals in the city. So like physical therapists, occupational therapists, and etc. And connected to the different hospital networks and try to like build collaborations. The collaboration that's been a running process with like many team members helping out with that. And this has been the most prolific thing for us because like these collaborations help us have like sustainable programming for the future years. And we'll tell you a bit about like some events we do have planned for this semester too, and like how our programming typically turns out. And so like this was just a really organizational process, a lot of like presenting differentially to like different stakeholders, learning a little bit about that, how to do so professionally. So it was a learning process for me personally, but like this is constantly running process. It's like a very dynamic process. We constantly do this. We do reach out to like our contacts, build these relationships, and add more and more people to our network base. And so this is something that's always going to continue to happen. Next slide. Cool. So, like I mentioned at the very beginning, so programming at Columbia and in New York City. So that's kind of what differentiates us from other clubs at Columbia. We really care about impact and scale. And in that way, we are a club that really reimagined what scale meant for Columbia clubs because we care about impact. We care about social impact, not just in name, but in actual practice. So neuroscience, intellectual engagement, that's something we're very fortunate to have because we have team members who are really passionate about neuroscience, medicine, etc. So we have that academic and intellectual background to really be able to interact in an intellectual capacity with these people, or like to provide resources for them. Again, we're not physicians, we're not giving medical advice, but like we can still engage as researchers, as research assistants, at like labs, and provide these resources to each other. So, and next, community at the helm of all our work is really providing community to this disenfranchised population and providing resources to them that they might not have access to or knowledge of. So some of the programs that we do have, which will be spoken about in more detail by the respective vice presidents, are the peer buddy program and the peer support group. And advocacy, we just like is, like I said, it's at the helm of like what we really do with all our programming. We really want to leverage human capital and university resources to like advocate for the population to like major stakeholders, including the mayor's office and like healthcare professionals at all these different hospitals. Next slide. Cool. That's a good segue into, I'm gonna hand it off to Isra if you want to take up there and talk a bit about narrative storytelling, and Claire, feel free to chime in there too.
Yeah, of course. So as Shark had mentioned, one of our main pillars that we run by is advocacy. And the way that we do that is that we try to uplift the voices of people within the community because we think that's really important. One way we do that is through narrative storytelling, and it's really just a really powerful way, an inspiring way to learn about people's stories and understand the different complexities of going through brain injury and other types of invisible disabilities. So some of the initiatives that we as a club took include the Narrate program, Narrate Disability in Quarantine. And I'm going to leave that to Claire to speak more about because the operations team also does Humans of ABI, which is, it's basically these two initiatives. We reach out to people in the community and allow them to tell their stories. And this goes hand in hand with our collaborations with medical professionals. So we bring in researchers from different medical professionals and from many different areas that deal with rehabilitation. And we let them talk about what kind of research is already being done, what kind of research is yet to be done. And we align that with all the intersectional social causes with different organizations that we also collaborate with. And the storytelling aspect of it provides a very firsthand and personal and intimate connection with the community and understanding for us as individuals, and spreads a lot of awareness. So Claire, if you want to speak more about the initiatives in detail.
Yeah, sure. So at least I know mostly about Humans of ABI, or acquired brain injury. And it's sort of like a small journalism project in which we find individuals who would like to share their story about their experience with their brain injury, and we listen carefully, and we create just a little blog post, interview post about their story, just so that they feel heard, and that we're getting their different experiences, because they are very diverse. So we're letting people know the diversity of people that deal with these I guess you could say invisible disabilities.
Yeah, and so these stories are publicized in our social media and our website, and we try to bring light to the voices and the important things that they bring to the table. Narrate is very similar, except it's focused more on our current times with COVID-19. And we recognize that there's so many different types of communities out there that were affected differently, maybe disproportionately, and we wanted to give a voice to those who experience disability, and see what kind of challenges they may have experienced during the COVID-19 crisis, whether that be financial, psychological, or any of that. They get to anonymously share 100-word narrative speaking about their experience.
Great, next slide. Awesome. This is a little bit about this is kind of the domain of Claire, but like since like you guys just spoke a bit, I will like just start off on this. So theme support groups, and Iman, feel free to chime in here too, because Iman, like our VP of peer support group, she is like really focused on like having a theme peer support group every week. So like curating a space where people feel comfortable to discuss and share the perspectives, and really create a space where people are like benefiting from the peers experience. And we kind of like this kind of goes to like having synaptic connections, or like synapse, like as you guys probably know, are like connections between neurons. And it's kind of cheesy, but like that's like kind of the story behind the name. And the buddy program, Isra, like you can speak a bit about that too, but like essentially just like is a way to connect Columbia undergraduate volunteers with community members, and this becomes a mode of social support for them, but also like helps Columbia like undergraduate volunteers learn about the population. And this is especially important for people who are gearing to become physicians, or who do plan in whatever career capacity in the future to work with disenfranchised populations. Having that sense of empathy and connection is definitely super important and valuable. And a monthly Synapse newsletter, this is like something that's more targeted towards just the peer support group members. So it consolidates all the resources that are shared during these peer support groups, which are very confidential, and like access is in that support group is limited only to people with a brain injury, just to keep people's confidentiality. So we make sure to like ensure that, enforce that, so that people feel comfortable to share whatever that they do wish to. Yeah, next slide. Awesome, neuroscience. Chinmay, I'm gonna hand it off to you.
Thanks, Shark. So Ling Hao and I are the co-vice presidents of events for Synapse, and we work very closely with the conference committee of Synapse as well, which we will discuss later, to organize events, not just for the Columbia undergraduate community and the wider Columbia community, but also for the wider, New York City area. So this both involves from a research lens, from a social lens, such as the Brainy Bunch social that we have coming up later in this call, to the annual New York City conference as well. So on the research side, we're very closely related and in discussions with researchers such as, Dr. Kearney from Columbia University's Medical Center, Mailman School of Public Health, Teachers College, School of Social Work, all of these affiliate institutions within Columbia, and in the wider medical network as well, such as Weill Cornell Med. Last November, we hosted our first ever annual research panel called The Landscape of TBI Research. And this featured researchers that we spoke about to really map the brain injury research landscape and tell students more about what exactly is going on in the field of TBI and ABI research. We are actually going to be having our second panel called The Resilient Brain in November of this year as well, so stay tuned for that. And like I touched upon previously, we are also organizing through the conference committee of Synapse our annual New York City conference that is organized during March. Unfortunately, our one for 2020 was postponed due to COVID-19, but there is more to come with that.
Yeah, great. Awesome. So it's going to quickly gloss over the slide because we do have more slides to share where VPs will quickly go over like what the committee does. But network building, fundraising, like there are two tenets that are very important to like the functioning of the club. Network building, have spoken about this extensively with like different doctors, organizations, and you can see some of the labels at the bottom, some of the logos, Regeneron, Pink Concussions, MOPD, Lyme, etc. Like, so we have these engagements with these different entities, which allow us to really make sure our programming is as robust as possible. Fundraising, of course, becomes a very important part of like programming. It's a bit different this year because we're doing virtual programming, so which requires fewer resources. But in previous years, we've like reached out to like hospital networks and created partnerships to like raise funds, for example, for the conference. Next slide. Really quick glance at like our internet and social media presence. This is our Facebook, our Twitter, and sorry, this is, oh yeah, that and that's a feature in the New York Times, which we were very fortunate to have. And yeah, we just hope this is the really just the beginning of our connectivity with the world, so that we can like really make sure we can scale our impact to New York City and like make sure our resources are accessible as possible. Cool, next slide. Awesome, Iman, you can take over.
Hi guys, I'm Iman. So I am the vice president of the peer support group. So for now, the peer support group has been hosting bi-monthly meetings for individuals who have brain injuries. And we also encourage loved ones to come in as well, so they can talk about their experiences working with someone like at home or a friend who's had a brain injury. It's nice to have a different perspective coming in. So we have thematic meetings where we discuss conflict management, careers, life purpose, and communication. Usually I come up with these themes on my own, but I also like hearing back from members. So I email them and I ask them, if there's anything you want me to talk about, please let me know. And I create a PowerPoint presentation. We discuss a poem or an artwork that's relating to the theme, and then we go over reflection questions. So like Sharik stated before, we have a newsletter, a monthly newsletter, and this is just for, it's for the peer support group members who come in, and it's just to share advice from members in the group, and it's a space to talk about upcoming events where, and this is where the peer buddy program gets intertwined. If there's a social event coming up, then you can bring your peer buddy with you to that social event and just meet others who have gone through the same experiences as you. Of course, we have the peer support group meeting, but that is more of a facilitated discussion. Our social events is just trying to get out of that bubble and have a more relaxed setting.
Yeah, and like Iman mentioned, these are social events that are targeted just at the community, and within the club we have our own intergroup like community programming, which is led by Claire, like the VP of operations, who kind of facilitates club bondings to make sure like we as a team are very well connected. So that's just like an important facet. Next slide. And this is just, yeah, the buddy program committee. Isra, if you can just like quickly share a bit about the buddy program.
Okay, so the buddy program is another way that Synapse tries to promote community. One thing that we want to do is to stay connected, and we want to make sure that we tackle things like socialization and reintegration of individuals with brain injury, acquired brain injury. So the buddy program is a big way that we do this, and it, like Iman said, it goes hand in hand with the peer support group, but the difference is it's very informal. It's just really connecting people, creating friendships. And typically we would pair an individual with brain injury who wants a buddy with a student, a Columbia student, not necessarily just undergraduate, but any Columbia student. And yeah, you make a new friend, you learn about their experiences, you share each other's stories. You don't necessarily have to be a person with brain injury to be a buddy, but of course there is a process that we go through to recruit buddies, and we go through a training process as well. And yeah, it's buddies are usually very up to date with Synapse events, and they let their buddy know about. And it's just really a great way to just create a support system outside of more formal, in a very informal setting.
Right. Yeah, and also like the committee members, these are the existing committee members who are currently on the team. So like these will be the committees that like people can apply to, and we will be sharing the application form at the end of the info session for you can have for your resource. And yeah, next slide. Cool. Operations. Claire, if you
Hi.
could go over that. Yeah.
So I'm the vice president of operations, and we just see operations within the club. So that's, you know, facilitating community within our team members, with the community that we support, and also making sure Synapse National knows that we're working toward our mission. So our biggest project is the Humans of ABI initiative that I talked about earlier, where we interview and then make social media posts and share the stories of people who have had a brain injury. We're also working on some other projects to, you know, create resources for this community that we support. So I'm also open to working with you if you have any other projects, ideas that you would want to put forth, just to further uplift the community that we support. Yeah, so if you're passionate about learning about this community and helping with club bonding, I would totally welcome you onto my team with Mohammed.
Awesome. Yeah, like Claire shared, this is like really operations really as a creativity hub, like where you kind of can build any project that you do want. That kind of shapes the community in a different way. Cool. Thanks, Claire. Next. All right, events. Take it over, Linghao and Chinmay.
I can start us off and pass it over to Ling Hao. Yeah, same information as before that we shared about with events. We are involved with a very large range from both research, social, and the conference scale. Ling Hao, do you want to add on to that? Tell us a little bit more about the events committee.
Yeah, no, definitely. So we have, like Chinmay said, we have help in a lot of different sizes of events that we hold. So this is one of the social events where we have a lot of people who are interested in neuroscience, interested in community, get together, talk about their passions and how we can help them express that, or how they'd like to help Synapse or join Synapse to help other people as well. And then we also have, last year we hosted research events where we would have a panel of researchers in the field of TBI speak out about the current state of neuroscience research in this field. So, and then they talk about their research, what they're working on right now, and then people can ask questions. And then this is open to anybody in the region, not just Columbia members. So we often have people who do experience TBIs attend these research meetings, and they can also see what is being done so that they can be helped in the future. And then lastly, while we didn't have this last year, we did work on creating a conference which would span over the course of 2 days and around 20 hours in total. And we would have multiple speakers give whatever they were working on, giving an introduction on that, talking about that, and
Right.
then taking questions at the end. But yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, Linghao, I think Bertina can also speak to conference.
Exactly. Yeah. When we get to the conference point, we can talk about that. But yeah, it's basically the tiers of events we host, and we'd love to hear more input from all of you who decide that events committee is where they want to join, about other events that we should be hosting, because we are a fairly new club. We always welcome new ideas that we can always test out.
Yeah. Absolutely. And considering that COVID-19 is still going on, all of our events this year will be held virtually, which presents a great deal of flexibility to really, as Ling Hao said, if you have ideas and you want to see them happen, there is a very large scale that we can make that happen at. Overall, we're a very engaged committee. It's a great opportunity to be able to plan out an event from start to finish, and we worked very closely with conference committee, and we'll continue to do so. As we're talking about as well, we're very close-knit committees, and just wanted to give a shout out to all the other communities as well. That Synapse really does work very closely with each other, committee to committee. And so, you know, as events committee members, Ling Hao, Kiri, and myself, hi Kiri, I think you're in the Zoom call. All of us don't just work with the three of us, but we work with every single person on the team as well. So just wanted to highlight that as well.
Awesome. Oh yeah, next slide. Awesome. Cool, Bertina.
Everyone, I'm Bertina. So we've been talking about the conference a bunch. What this is it's a 2-day annual conference. I think last year we had over 40 people scheduled to present. What's great about this event is that if you're involved in this, you get to be directly involved in the programming that goes into this event. And because there's so many workshops happening at once of all different types, we had everything from lectures to discussion panels to a movie night, essentially. You get to inject your own creativity and your own passion. What issues would you like to see discussed? What would you like to see brought forward? And it's also a great way to get the Synapse name out there. what we use to part of what we use to market ourselves and to establish ourselves with other organizations within brain injury and invisible disability. Um, so it's a great chance to learn how to network, to learn how to contact speakers, how to work with the logistics of such a massive event, and just to have fun with it. We welcome the craziest idea. Last year, I reached out to an artist who had gone through a brain injury and like created this amazing artistic career afterwards. So, just all kinds of things just about spreading information, spreading advocacy.
Cool. Next slide.
Yeah. Yeah, so just the logistics of this, it was a 2-day event. We had 27 speakers. I thought it was higher for some reason. I think it's because we contacted so many of them. We actually were very fortunate. We got a very prominent CSO, so the chief scientific officer, like the CEO of a pharmaceutical company, Regeneron, Dr. Yankopoulos, to be our keynote speaker. So it's a very big deal, and we got to work with a bunch of really cool, broad organizations like Lyme Connect and Mount Sinai. Again, to develop a relationship not just for the conference itself, but also for the club going forward. So this event is great because it's not just a wonderful event in and of itself, but it also is a way of expressing what Synapse does and the accomplishments of Synapse.
Yeah, Dhruv, take it over.
Hi guys, I'm Dhruv. I'm the VP of Finance Treasurer. So what the fundraising committee does is it's pretty self-explanatory. It works on creating fundraising events to help the club. Also, we're looking for a VP of fundraising for that specific task. Also, you'd be working with creating budgets for different events in the conference and working on finding sponsorships for those events as well. So yeah, if you're interested in that area of the club, this would be for you.
Yeah, like Dhruv mentioned, like fundraising definitely is a very critical component of the club's mission. And the best thing about the cabinet or like being on executive board is just the fact that everyone works so closely together. So you're not left alone. Everyone's contributing ideas, shouting out ideas for like events. For example, like right now we were thinking about like screen printed masks for like fundraising. It's like trying to like adapt to the times and like trying to like host fundraising events that like cater to like our audiences in the best possible way, and kind of raising sponsorships during the conference, reaching out to local businesses, directors of like medical centers to like have like a long-term partnership and etc. So that's just some of the ways that like in fundraising committee, like you do get like also a chance to interact with like external stakeholders and like network in your own way. Cool, Steven, take it over. Is Steven online? All right, I'll cover. All right, so VP of Marketing and Outreach, it's pretty self-explanatory, like what we do, marketing and outreach. Those are two like different components, I suppose. You can like think of it in that way. Uh, extremely important given the scale of the club. Like this is a position that is extremely vital and very quintessential to the success of the club. So marketing involves like reaching out to different marketing channels that we've already established because we have already like a huge contact space, reaching out to them ahead of like events such as the research panel, the annual research panel that we have, and asking them to advertise their flyers with their contact base. So it's a lot of doing that. And like also marketing involves like managing our social media. So it's obviously not the same person doing all of this job, the entire job, but like marketing involves like Twitter, our LinkedIn, Instagram, and website. and the design component of that. So marketing is a pretty involved position, and outreach again is like reaching out to like building new contacts. But the marketing committee, outreach committee, like really works the most with like the events committee and like putting up programs, like the ideas that like other people have and having a creative output to those ideas on the internet. Cool. So yeah, just like we kind of have to touch upon these ideas, but like the goals of Columbia Synapse are very activist, yes, identity conscious, humanitarian. So like we think a lot about social impact, educational in a way like we want to raise awareness about what brain injury is, and educational also in a way where we're creating a community of neuroscience researchers who are like very closely integrated and can build off of each other. And entrepreneurial, that's kind of like the gist of like what Columbia Synapse is, what makes us very different. We're entrepreneurial in the way that we reimagine scale and like how collaborate with organizations nationally, internationally, and are really ambitious in the way we conduct our operations. So if you're looking to join a club where people are not afraid to think big and are given the platform to do so, this is your place. And like if you're like really if if these goals are like things that like really speak to you, again, like this is the kind of place you want to be in. And next slide. I think we're drawing to the end. So this is our social media, our Facebook, which isn't kind of underutilized as of now. Twitter and Instagram. Our website's probably our most utilized platform as of now, just given of how things turned out, and it's pretty well designed, easy to like interface on, etc. So you can check that out, and has like information about the different programs that we have and like just a general gist of like the events like of coming up, including a calendar at the bottom of the homepage, which shows you a bit about like what's next now for Columbia Synapse in the next few months. Cool, next slide. And with that, this is the part of where we're like really excited to engage with you and get to know you guys. So thank you first of all for joining the call. Really, really excited to get to know you guys. And this is just the application. And the application is just the first step in getting to know you. Like really look forward to interviewing you and having those like conversations, those like that human to human connection, and learning about people in that conversation more so just than the application. So while the application is important, we are like dedicated to like getting to interview everyone, hopefully, if time permits. But like please do put in the effort to like to help us know like why you're interested in joining the club if you are. And we'll take it from there. Like, yeah, thank you. And that wraps up the info session. Cool. So I think this is a good time, maybe like for like 5 minutes or so to, if anyone has any questions, happy to answer them. And anyone can really answer the questions, anyone on the executive board. So you can either just speak up because that would just be easiest, or you can type in your question in the chat too, whatever you're more comfortable with.
Hi, Sharik. I have a question.
Hi, yes. Hi, Kyrie.
Hi. Do we have to reapply if we were on the team last year?
You did not. You did not.
Okay, cool.
Like, you did not. Kyrie, excited to have you again. You only do have to reapply if you want to change your committee, then you do reapply, yes.
I'll ask a question that maybe some other folks will have, especially freshmen.
Yeah.
How often does Columbia Synapse have meetings, or how do I really get to interact with other people, maybe outside of my committee, just in Synapse in general?
Cool, yeah, good question. So the cabinet or the executive board meets weekly, and that's typically during the week, like a week at night. And that's just a way to like touch base on like any action items that were like lingering from like club meeting. But a club meeting is really a way for all committee members and cabinet members or executive board members to come together and really talk to each other and update each other on like the occurrences of like what they've done in their respective committees throughout the week. And that becomes a chance to like, really talk to each other. Really, if you want to engage with like the projects that another committee is working on, you really get a chance to speak up and like talk And the Brainy Bunch socials, like the one that we have today, is definitely like another opportunity to like be social and like get to bond with other team members. And some of the community events that like operations has hosted in the past have been like movie nights, like baking events, stuff like that. So it's a really, really fun and like wholesome way to interact with like your fellow, with your peers.
We have a question from the chat. Do you accept volunteers who are seniors in high school?
Yeah, Jinmai, do you want to take that?
Sure. We absolutely encourage individuals both in high school and in undergrad, and even beyond, to get involved with Columbia Synapse. Though most of our roles are geared towards undergraduate students at Columbia University, we are absolutely willing to chat with you and figure out a great way for you to get involved in the club through what you're looking for most out of a role. So if you don't fit into the traditional undergrad role, perhaps that our info session is geared towards, please send us an email at synapse@columbia.edu, and we would love to chat with you.
Yeah, to add on to that, we're definitely a club that's really open to collaborations. We always get emails from high school students to seniors who want to really collaborate with us, and we're always open to that, and we will definitely reply. So please let us know what you're interested in. Yes, our email is in the chat, and we can help out.
Awesome. Any other questions before we break out? I think Chinmay, you're going to handle the breakout rooms.
Yeah, Ling Hao and I will explain the Skribbl game that we will be playing, and then we'll break out into breakout rooms. One last question that I want to present, because it's something that I've heard a lot during my time at Synapse, is why is Columbia Synapse a good place for neuroscience students compared to other neuroscience initiatives, perhaps? What really sets Synapse apart?
Right. No, thank you for asking that question. And that is a question like I've probably received in the past too. And I think with Columbia Synapse, like what really makes us different is that we're socially minded individuals, and we think about impact and like really making our results translate to real life. So like while we're like very intellectually engaged with neuroscience research, and like we research, and like team members research on a variety of topics and like in a variety of labs like all across the Columbia network, but we are all like equally socially minded, and we're geared towards like scaling our social impact in the city. And that's what makes us different, because we're not just focused on the intellectual component of like neuroscience, but like also the social component and how we can leverage that to make a difference, so that we can possibly be known for that.
One last thing for all the freshmen, or for anybody in this session right now who is doubting applying. Honestly, we're super open. Even if you don't have much experience, if you're passionate about it, if anything in this presentation resonated with you, and you really want to work, don't hesitate to apply. We're definitely looking for people who are ambitious, who are optimistic about this, and who just really want to make a difference with this mission.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a question in the chat. Can we apply for more than one committee?
Yes, you can, Isha. And that's like a good, the interview becomes a good time for us to determine which committee would be the best fit for you. But like also like if you like open the application, there's a short description of like what each committee entails, and we kind of spoke about that as also during the info session. But if you're still confused, feel free to apply to like more committees as well, and like explain like how, yeah. And like just touching upon like what Isra said earlier, like don't feel intimidated at all by like our mission and like what we do and our scale. Like we are a really friendly group of people, and we love working together, having laughs, and cabinet meetings become like, or the executive board meetings, for example, the club meetings become like the funnest time. Like I personally look forward to our meetings every week. It's like a really fun time, especially like during COVID, to like be able to meet everyone and like just have like laughs and like just be able to talk and make jokes about like Star Wars, like stuff like that, and like science fiction, which I'm not personally the biggest fan of, but like other members are. But the point is that we're like a community at the end of the day, and that's what matters beyond the work. And we look out for each other. We're not gonna bail on each other. If you are stuck in a bind, we will make sure like you are able to like still work and like stay with us. You're not gonna be like just kicked out or like excluded from anything. So don't be afraid to apply. Just like give it a chance, and like we are excited to interview you and like, meet you. Cool. Any more questions? Awesome. Cool. Before I hand it over to you, Chinmay Linghao, I just want to mention that the application link, it is in the chat, so you can open it up and you can click on that. But also we'll be sending it out to like all participants if you don't get a chance to look at it right now. Awesome. Handing it over to you now, Chinmay Linghao. Let's see. Skribbl.
Yeah, so thanks everyone for staying. If you guys have to leave, feel free to, but we'd really love to invite you to have a